Welcome back to another December in the Cul-de-sac. I'm Elizabeth Stinson, the Cul-de-sac Woman. Today, we're down to serious business. It's our annual Christmas cookie cutout day. There's a full-scale operation set up in the kitchen. Follow me. Welcome back to the holidays in my kitchen. We are all set up to mix, roll, cut, bake, decorate, and package. You know, I decided years ago, when our kids were very young, that if we were going to make any holiday cookies at all, they must be cutouts for the full Christmas baking experience. This is at least year 12 for us, so you are in good hands. A tried and true, perfected cookie cutout recipe idea. Our yummy, wholesome classic dough, as well as a gingerbread dough, which is derived from half of the classic dough. So only one batch is needed for both. Very convenient. First, I'll show you how to make the cookie dough. Very important to note, I always make the cookie dough in advance, sometimes as early as October, often November, and freeze it. At the very least the day before and refrigerate it overnight. We want the dough already made, ready to go for the big rolling, cutting, baking, and decorating day. Now, all we need are 3 simple mixtures. Mixture number 1. Here in my large mixing bowl are dry ingredients. 2 cups of stone ground whole wheat flour, 1 cup of barley flour, and 1 cup of oat flour. These flours are pretty readily available in your local grocery store's specialty organic aisles now. 1 teaspoon of baking soda for a little lift, a half a teaspoon of salt, and zest, orange part only, of 1 entire orange. Just toss it all together with a large fork. The orange zest will give our cookies that holiday flair. Now, to our dry ingredients, we are going to add a half a cup, 1 stick of cold cubed butter pieces, about a ½ inch cubes. Just drop them in on top of your dry mix. Gently toss with your large fork to coat the butter pieces with the dry ingredients. We will move on to our mixtures number 2 and 3 while our butter just begins to soften. It takes no more than 1 hour straight out of the refrigerator. Mixture number 2, the liquid ingredients. In a small bowl, or like I'm using here, a 4-cup or so measuring cup, which is also nice for pouring, I have 2 large whole beaten eggs. We're going to add a half a cup of cane sugar, a half a cup of coconut palm sugar, which is readily available even in regular baking aisles now, 1/4 cup of sour cream, and last, 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract. Whoop. You know what, I went over, so I'm going to call that 2 teaspoons. Just mix it all together. Very simple. That takes care of mixture number 2. Mixture number 3, my magical homemade gingerbread sludge concentrate. I have 1/4 cup of unsulfured blackstrap molasses. Unsulfured molasses is specially manufactured from cane sugar and not a byproduct of refining cane or beet sugar into table sugar. Blackstrap molasses is more concentrated than regular molasses and has less sugar and more robust crude flavor. It's also a significant source of iron, potassium, and calcium. To our 1/4 cup unsulfured blackstrap molasses, we're going to add a half a cup of stone ground whole wheat flour, 1 teaspoon of ground cinnamon, and 1 level tablespoon of fresh grated ginger root. Now, just get down in there and mix it all together in kind of a chopping, stirring motion. It will be thick and dough-like. Extra special for Christmas. 1 bite and there will be no doubt that these are real gingerbread cookies. There it is, our homemade gingerbread sludge concentrate. We'll just set this aside for a moment. Let's check our butter texture now. Take out one of the cubes. That's good. Still cool with some give, softening, but not room temperature soft. All right then. Paddle down, lock, and turn on low speed. We want a soft, fine, crumbly mixture. So we're going to gently scrape the paddle, bottom and sides of the bowl, at least 3 times until we get there. There it is, soft and crumbly. Now at this point, we're going to add 4 ounces, a half of an 8-ounce block of Neuchatel cheese, cold, straight from the refrigerator. Just drop it in piece by piece until it's all in there on low speed. There it is, last piece, just kind of a larger teaspoon size pieces. Once it's all in there, we will gently scrape the paddle, bottom and sides of the bowl once. Our butter and Neuchatel are finely distributed throughout. It's a uniform, soft, fine crumble. Ready for our mixture number 2, liquid ingredients. But first, here's my favorite cookie tip of all times. When mixing up your cookie batters in your big and powerful mixers, mix them on a low to low medium speed. No better than what you can do by hand in a good old-fashioned bowl with a wood spoon. Do not whip the batter, incorporating too much air, yielding a lifeless, flat cookie. Unless it's a recipe like a meringue that calls for air incorporation. So, beating at too high a speeds, incorporating too much air, even with the paddle attachment, is more of a concern with the drop batter type cookies, yielding a flat, lifeless, deflated cookie. It's not so much a concern with the rolled out doughs because you can't even really get to that high speeds with that thick of a dough. But even still, at the very beginning, as I start to add my liquids, I am going to start off and just use a low speed. Come together and start to move around the mixer bowl in a big clump, leaving the sides of the bowl mostly clean as it forms into a dough. Here it is, our classic cookie cutout dough. It's beginning to smell a lot like Christmas in here. I removed all of it from the mixer and I formed an even shaped log, just eyeballing it. Now, cut it in half, divide it in half, just be as accurate as you can, eyeballing it. And we will return 1/2 of it to the mixer. And for each of my 3 kids, I'm going to form 3 discs out of the other half. Okay, there we go. Ready to roll. I am wrapping each disc in a piece of parchment paper and then bagging them for the freezer. I recommend forming at least 2 discs, even if you're going to be the only one cutting and rolling, so that you're working with smaller pieces at a time out of the refrigerator, keeping the dough cooler and easier to work with. Now, we will magically turn the other half of our classic cookie cutout dough in our mixer bowl here into our gingerbread cookie cutout dough with, you guessed it, my magical homemade gingerbread sludge concentrate. And note, I switched to the dough hook for this part. All right, dough hook down, lock, and on low speed, just drop our gingerbread concentrate into our classic dough. Work it in on low speed with your dough hook. And I have a little bit of flour on my fingers to keep it from sticking. Just drop it in piece by piece and work it in with the dough hook till it's all in there and combined. Last few pieces. Fantastic. Truly 2 delicious Christmas cookie cutout doughs in essentially one batch. Now you can have both your classic and gingerbread cookie cutouts this year. Since we are going to go through the effort to roll and cut, this 2-for-1 marvelous shortcut makes it all worth it. Okay. I'm just going to give it a scrape and then mix it up a little bit more until the sludge is well incorporated and combined with the rest of the dough to form our gingerbread cookie cutout dough. And then I'll take it out of the mixer. All right, our dough hook did a great job working in that gingerbread sludge concentrate. And just like I did for the classic cookie cutout dough, we will divide our gingerbread cookie cutout dough into thirds, forming 3 discs, 1 for each of the 3 kits. Okay, we're wrapping each disc in parchment paper for the freezer. That is if you're making your doughs days or weeks in advance, like I normally do. Or off to the refrigerator if you're making your doughs a day or 2 in advance before use. Today, we are using the doughs that I had already made up and froze for us in advance. I transferred them from the freezer to the refrigerator yesterday. And we're starting with the classic, which we pulled from the refrigerator about 30 minutes before rolling. Just like the butter cubes earlier, we want the dough cool with some firmness so that it's easy to work with. Roll and cut out each nice and cool disc until it is all used up, not paper thin, about 1/8 to 1/4 inch thick. Placing shapes on heavier dark coated baking pans. Nothing fancy, lined with non-stick parchment baking sheets for a nice baked up cookie. No butter or spray needed, always parchment paper for cookies. Drew is doing a little demo for you here. A great idea when the kids were a lot younger. Check it out. The dough is rolled and cut out on a piece of parchment paper. Now, if you do have any trouble with sticking at all, just roll between 2 pieces of parchment. Slide your cutout dough onto the baking sheet. Then just remove the extra dough. No little fingers trying to lift the cutout dough shapes. And it's always a good idea to bake similar sized cookies together for even baking. Part of our strategy here is we pre-decorate about half of the cookies with sprinkles and colorful sugars before baking. And the other half, a little more decadent, with frosting and various decors after baking. All of them, pre-decorated or not, bake up in a 350-degree Fahrenheit oven for 8 to 10 minutes. Then we cool our cookies completely on wire racks. And just a baking update for you, the larger cookies are taking closer to 8 minutes to bake, and the smaller cookies closer to 6 minutes. So it'll move along real quickly for you. And remember to let your sheet pans cool completely before loading them up with more dough shapes. If your parchment piece gets a little messy or worn, you can replace it with a fresh piece. But they're usually good for more than one baking cycle. All right, we're moving on to our beautiful gingerbread dough now. All the same rules, method, and baking apply as for the classic dough. No difference. And be sure to work with cool dough, but if you are having any sticking, just roll between 2 parchment sheets. And always roll from the center out. Center out. Turning after each roll for a nice, even 1/8 to 1/4 inch thick piece of dough for cutting. All right, we have some gingerbread shapes cut out now, and some are shapes other than gingerbread men, but those are our favorite for the gingerbread. And as for the classic, some are decorated prior to baking, and some will be frosted and decorated after baking. A quick gingerbread baking update for you. We're removing our gingerbread cookies from the oven after 6 minutes at 350 degrees Fahrenheit. 6 minutes. Once the cookies are all baked and cooled, we all gather at the decorating station. The kitchen table, that is. The more, the merrier. To frost and decorate all the undecorated cookies, both the classic and gingerbread. We like a basic 10x powdered sugar buttercream frosting recipe, made a little on the thick side, but still spreadable with a knife. I made it in advance a few days ago. I divided it into as many bowls as colors desired. We have 5 bowls containing white, and then 4 others colored red, green, yellow, and blue. Then I covered each bowl and held them in the refrigerator until today. I pulled them from the refrigerator about an hour ago and then gave each one a stir to loosen them up a bit. A basic buttercream frosting recipe is as follows. 6 cups of 10x sugar, 9 tablespoons of softened butter, 5 to 7 tablespoons of milk, buttermilk, or eggnog, and about 2½ teaspoons of pure vanilla extract. Mix it all together until a thick, smooth, and spreadable consistency by hand or on a stand-up mixer with paddle attachment on a lower speed, just like we did for our cookie dough. Do not whip or beat. We want a nice, dense frosting for decorating, not overly fluffy and aerated. I usually end up here at the packaging station. Everyone got very creative this year. Somebody even made a sandwich cookie. That's new. We love to spread Christmas cheer all around our cul-de-sac with a few cookies for many as opposed to 1 or 2 large platters for just a few. We have several smaller households here, and it's just a wonderful opportunity to knock on doors and say Merry Christmas to all of our neighbors, along with a few beautifully decorated, delicious homemade cookies of the season. And everyone decorates a special cookie for Santa. Our favorite classic and gingerbread Christmas cookie cutouts. You can truly taste that once a year, special, rich, baked-in holiday goodness. For more of my holiday cooking ideas, see episodes 22, 23, and 24 on my Mindful Home Cooking channel. Elizabeth Stinson, Cooking with the Cul-de-sac Woman at youtube.com.
Peace, joy, and Merry Christmas, everyone. See you next month in the cul-de-sac.